The coffee pot slipped from her trembling hands, spilling a brown stain down her white apron, but it wasn't the hot liquid that burned her. It was the laughter. The cruel, heartless laughter of 3 young men in the corner booth. The oldest of them, a boy no older than 21, leaned back in his seat with a grin too proud for his age. His designer shirt screamed money. His arrogance screamed something worse. Without warning, he spat, right on her clean uniform, and said something that made the whole diner go silent. The old woman's eyes flickered with hurt, but she didn't speak. She just stood there, coffee dripping from the pot, her pride breaking drop by drop. If you believe that kindness and respect should never depend on a person's age or status, take a second right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. These stories remind us that even small actions can reveal who we truly are. Her name was Martha Green, 69 years old, a widow who had spent her entire life serving people with a smile. Every morning she walked 5 blocks to the diner, tied her stained apron, and poured coffee for strangers who rarely looked her in the eye. She'd been through storms, losing her husband to cancer, raising her only son alone, and still finding a reason to greet every customer with kindness. But today, that kindness had been spat on, literally. The young man's name was Bryce Weller, son of a real estate magnate who owned half the town. He'd never worked a day in his life. To him, people like Martha were invisible, background figures in the movie of his comfortable world. Bryce laughed as his friends filmed the moment. "This will go viral," one of them snickered, holding up his phone. Martha wiped her apron, trembling. She whispered a soft apology, even though she'd done nothing wrong. She just wanted to disappear. What Bryce didn't notice was the reflection in the diner window, 4 figures standing by the door, motionless. Men in dark leather vests with Hell's Angels patches. One of them, broad-shouldered and tattooed, leaned against the counter, his arms crossed, his eyes cold and sharp. His name was Rex Dalton, a man who'd seen the worst of life and still had a code that no one crossed: respect the ones who serve you. The moment stretched. Martha turned to go refill another table's cup, pretending nothing happened, but everyone could feel the tension. Even the jukebox seemed to go quiet. Bryce kept smirking, checking his phone, waiting for likes that hadn't even come yet. But before he could stand, the door to the diner closed with a heavy thud. Rex walked over, boots echoing against the checkered floor. His shadow fell across the booth, blotting out the light. The other bikers stood behind him, not threatening, just watching. The laughter at the booth died instantly. Rex didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The look in his eyes said enough. He picked up the coffee pot that had fallen, placed it gently on the counter, and turned to Martha. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "did he hurt you?" She shook her head, unable to meet anyone's gaze. Rex turned to Bryce. His tone was calm, almost too calm. "You think it's funny to spit on someone who's working to make a living? That woman could be your grandmother." Bryce stammered something, his bravado crumbling under the weight of silence. The phone in his hand suddenly felt like a loaded guilt. The other bikers closed in, not to fight, but to make him feel every ounce of shame he'd ignored all his life. Rex nodded toward the counter. "You're gonna make this right," he said. "Start with cleaning that mess you made." Bryce froze, staring at the puddle of coffee and his own reflection in it. Then, to everyone's astonishment, he picked up a rag. His hands shook. His friends didn't move to help. The room watched as the rich boy bent down and wiped the floor. Each stroke of the rag stripped away a layer of his arrogance. Martha tried to stop him, whispering, "It's all right, dear," but Rex shook his head gently. "No, ma'am," he said. It's time someone taught him what respect looks like. When Bryce finished, he looked smaller, not because of the cleaning, but because of what it made him realize. He'd never cleaned anything in his life. Never apologized and meant it. For the first time, he did. "I'm sorry," he said, barely above a whisper. Martha smiled faintly, her tired eyes softening. "Thank you, son," she said. The diner exhaled as if everyone had been holding their breath. Rex gave a small nod and walked back to his table. His crew followed, silent as shadows. But that wasn't the end of it. Later that night, when the diner closed, Bryce came back. Martha was wiping the last table. He held an envelope in his hand, filled with cash, his father's money. He tried to hand it to her, saying, "I want to make it right." She refused it. "Money can't clean what pride dirties," she said gently. "But kindness can." Her words stayed with him longer than any punishment could. Bryce left the diner with a heavy heart, not realizing Rex was outside smoking by his bike. The biker watched him go and muttered, "Maybe there's hope for him after all." A week later, Martha found a note taped to her locker. It wasn't signed, but she knew who it was from. Inside was a simple message, "Thank you for forgiving me. I'm volunteering at the community kitchen now. You showed me what real work looks like." And beneath it was a receipt, a massive anonymous donation made to a local shelter under her name. She cried quietly, holding the paper close to her chest. Sometimes, life's cruelest moments become the turning points for someone else's redemption. Martha never told anyone what happened that day, but every biker who'd been in that diner told the story differently, not about the spit or the laughter, but about the old woman who forgave and the boy who learned what respect means. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps keep stories of compassion and redemption alive for the world to see. Before you go, comment below, what would you have done if you were sitting in that diner? Would you have stood up like Rex, or forgiven like Martha? Because sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can silence even the loudest cruelty, and change a heart forever.